Hello, good morning. How are you today? I hope you are enjoying the online class. It's nice reaching out to you today on this wonderful morning. Today, as we start the Agri class, I think you remember that since the beginning of this term, we've been looking at the topic fishery. Under the topic fishery, we have looked at definition of fishery and terms associated with fishery. We have looked at classification of fishes based on various criteria. Likewise, we have looked at factors to be considered in siting of a fish pond. And from there, we look at fishing methods. Under the topic fishing methods, we have looked at fishing equipment and types. Also, we have looked at good fishing methods. Likewise, we look at bad fishing methods. Also, we have looked at some fishery regulations in Nigeria. Now, we assume that we have sited our fish pond, we have started rearing our fishes, and now we have harvested our fishes. Now, in our last class, I told us about fish processing. I told us that fishing, because fishes are highly perishable goods, they can spoil immediately few minutes after harvesting, and that is why they must be processed before preservation. And why we need to process fish is because if we did not process the fish and we allow it to get spoiled, there's no amount of fish preservation method that will be effective and make the fish to retain its freshness and the good taste. Under fish processing, I made us to understand that the major activities under fish processing includes 1. Bleeding. Bleeding refers to the cutting of the head in order to allow the blood to flow out of the fishes. Likewise, we look at removal of scales for the scaly fishes. We also look at removal of content of the gut. And lastly, we said in processing fishes, the last thing is washing with water or salt water solution. Now, after processing of fishes, we are looking at today fish preservation and methods of fish preservation. We shall be looking at various methods of fish preservation. Now, after processing of fish, like I said, fish must be preserved in order to make it to remain edible for a very long time. And that is fish preservation. Fish preservation is a way of keeping fish in order to make it remain in an edible condition for a long time. In order to make the fish to still retain its taste and quality and still be safe for human consumption, then we need to preserve it. So fish preservation is a way of keeping fish in order to make it remain in an edible condition for a long time, or to make it to remain safe for consumption for a long time. Now, fish preservation methods. Fish preservation methods include salting, drying, smoking, freezing, canning, then conversion to fish meal. I repeat, fish preservation methods include salting, drying, smoking, freezing, canning, and conversion to fish meal. We shall be explaining those preservation methods one after the other. Now, salting. Another name for salting is braining. This is a fish preservation method which includes the sprinkling of table salt over fish or soaking the fish in salt water solution. Table salt is the edible salt, the one that we cook with at home. That is NaCl. In order to preserve fish using this method, all you need to do is after processing the fish, after cutting the head, washing it, removing scales, etc., then you sprinkle salt over the fish. Or alternatively, you could put salt inside water and you soak the fish inside. This method of fish preservation can only keep fish for a very short time. And I think from here I should explain to you that the fish preservation method to be adopted on fish will be determined by the number of period you want to use in keeping the fish. Like this salting or braining now can only keep fish for just few hours. Assuming after buying fish, I don't want to cook it immediately, and I know that I just want to keep it for like 2 or 3 hours and still make it to remain fresh. All I'll do is after processing it, I will just sprinkle salt over the fish. That is salting as a method of fish preservation. Now to drying. Drying is a process of removing as much as possible water from fish through the use of oven or sun. I repeat, drying is the process of removing as much as possible water from fish through the use of oven or sun. Drying can be done on a large scale in oven. And when drying is done on a large scale using oven, it will be called oven drying method. Now let me explain why drying could be used as a means of preserving fish. Studies have told us that microorganisms they thrive well, or they grow well, or they reproduce very well in the presence of moisture. Moisture is just talking about water content. So microorganisms, when there is water content in a substance, when the water content in a substance is very high, microorganisms could grow very fast and reproduce. Now, what drying try to do is to find a means of removing as much as possible water from this fish in order to reduce the moisture content. Because once the moisture content or the water content in the fish is reduced, then microorganisms will find it difficult to be able to reproduce and grow. And that is just the reason why drying could be used to preserve fish. Drying can preserve fish for longer time if done properly, because it will prevent spoilage microorganisms from reproducing. Now, like I said, that drying could be done using oven or using sun. If drying is done using sun, it is called sun drying. This sun drying method could be adopted during the dry season, when the temperature is usually very hot and everywhere is usually sunny, especially in the northern part of Nigeria, where the place is usually hot. So the method they use in preserving their fish is sun drying method. After draining the water, after processing and draining the water in sieve, all they do is just to expose the fish to sun. And after exposing it to the sun, you discover that the sun will be able to absorb the water in the fish, thereby leading to drying. But if drying is done using hot air oven, then this method will be called oven drying method. If drying is done using oven, it is called oven drying method. Now we'll move ahead and we'll look at smoking as a method of fish preservation. Smoking is another method of fish preservation which involves the drying of fish over fire and covering the fish on the fire, which could be made of a mud. The oven could be made of a mud or container. Now, let me explain the difference between smoking and the use of hot air oven for drying. Hot air ovens supply hot heat, which helps to dry the fish. While in smoking, fish is being placed over naked fire, and the fish will be covered together on the fire. You have seen where somebody is roasting corn, or they are making roasted plantain. That is the exact way smoking is usually being done. When you have the fire done, Then there will be wire gauze, and the fish will be placed on the wire gauze, just like the corn will be placed, but with the exception that the fish is going to be covered, which means with a container, which means the heat and the smoke that is produced by the fire will help to dry the fish. Smoking made use of heat and the smoke that is produced by the fire in order to dry the fish. And any fish preserved through this method of smoking usually tastes better, and they usually have good flavor. So which means if you cherish the taste of your fish and you desire good flavor, smoking is a good fish preservation method to be adopted. Now I will proceed to canning. Canning is a fish preservation method in which fish is stored in an airtight can or tins. Canning is a fish preservation method in which fish is stored in airtight cans and tins. Canning is usually done in industries called cannery. Industry where they carry out canning is called cannery. Now, let me explain canning again. What can tries to do is that is the process of compressing the fishes into a tin and airtight, and making sure that there's no air inside the container. And it is usually done under very strict aseptic condition. Aseptic condition means condition that is free of any contamination from the environment. Now, canning is an effective method of fish preservation because it stores fish for a very long time. A canned fish could actually be stored for about 6 months and thereabouts, or even longer if done properly. An example of canned fish includes sardines, geisha, tuna fish, etc. Now, we proceed to another fish preservation method, which is freezing or chilling. Freezing or chilling. Freezing involves storing fish at a temperature below 0 degrees C to inactivate bacteria and other spoilage microorganisms. Let me explain. Inactivate means to make bacteria and other spoilage microorganisms not being active. Now, freezing or chilling does not kill microorganisms, does not remove microorganisms from the fish. But what it does is that because the temperature is very low, microorganisms will find it difficult to be able to be active. They will not be able to spoil the fish, and likewise they will not be able to reproduce. And that is why you will have noticed that if you actually store the fish inside freezer and it is frozen, even for like 2 weeks or thereabouts, you'll discover that if there's no power supply again, that fish that you have stored there after about a week and there's no power supply and you didn't do anything to the freezer, you discover that once the temperature becomes high, the fish could actually spoil. Because once the temperature is becoming warm again, microorganisms will have ability of reproducing and they will become active. So what freezing does is just to lower the temperature and make sure that the bacteria and other spoilage microorganisms, they are not active. Fish can be frozen in fridges, freezers, and cold rooms. And that is freezing or chilling as a method of fish preservation. The last fish preservation method we're looking at today is conversion of fish to fish meal. Conversion to fish meal. Very small fishes and some fish parts such as bones, fins, gills, etc. that somebody could consider as being a waste is not actually a waste, but they could be dried and made to powder, which can be used as poultry feed. In a second time, under poultry or animal feeds, we have looked at fish meal as an example of a food concentrate. Now, after your total harvesting, smaller fishes, or during the processing of the fish, the hairs, the bone, the fins, gills, etc. that are being removed from the fish could actually be dried and milled to powder. Or let's assume that what you do to your fish is canning. Canning is not usually done with the head of the fish. So all the hairs that are removed and the fins or the gills could be dried and milled to powder, which could serve as a source of food or as animal feed that could be used to feed poultry birds. And that is where we're going to end today's class. I want us to remember what we have learned today. We have talked about fish preservation method, and we have looked at under fish preservation method, we have looked at salting, we have looked at drying as a method of fish preservation, we have looked at smoking, we have looked at canning, and I told us that canning is usually done in industries called cannery. Also, we have looked at freezing or chilling. We have also looked at conversion of fish to fish meal. And that is where we're ending the class for today. See you next class.